So before I walk into this Publix, I want to talk to you guys about how I spent $11,000 in 2 months. So yesterday I uploaded a video, and in that video, I asked you guys if you wanted to hear me talk more about investing, stocks, things of that nature, and videos in the near future to let me know in the comments. And I had some individuals who are interested in hearing more about investing. Now, one thing that I have on my channel is a lot of truck drivers that tune in, right? I think that's probably 95% of the viewers that watch my channel, they're in the trucking industry. And so that's a good thing because at least from what I see online pertaining to truck driving, most truck drivers, they only talk about truck driving. Most of them. There are a handful of guys out there that talk about investing, talk about saving, things of that nature. And I think that's the most important thing. Um, we all want to make money, of course. A lot of us make good money in what we do, but are we putting our money in places that's going to benefit us financially? And I think that is what's important, particularly in today's economy and everything that's going on around us. So today I want to share with you guys how I spent $11,000 in 2 months. I think based on the context and some of the things I just mentioned, you probably have a good idea. There's a lot I could have done with $11,000, right? I could have went to Saks Fifth Avenue, bought some designer clothes, some designer shoes. I could have bought me some nice wheels for my car, rims and tires, some really nice ones for $11,000. I could have got a nice paint job for my car if I wanted to for $11,000. I could have bought a brand new 2025 motorcycle for $11,000. Now, I'm not a motorcycle guy, but all my motorcycle enthusiasts out there, drop it in the comments and let me know if I could have bought a nice brand new bike for 11 grand. I know the answer, but I want some of you guys that actually ride motorcycles to drop it in the comments. There's a lot I could have done with $11,000. But what I chose to do is what I'm getting ready to show you guys. So let me go into my portfolio. This is my brokerage account. I want to show you specifically what I did with 11 grand. So there was an ETF that I own called SCHD. It's the Schwab US Dividend ETF. Now, back on July 31st, I sold all my shares of that particular ETF. And I want to get down here and show you. So as you can see, I sold my 439.37 and some odd shares at a price of $26.78. And in return, $11,767.87 is what I got back. The current price of SCHD is $27.42. Again, I sold it at the time for $26.78. So it hasn't increased in price very much, which is the main reason I sold that ETF. It was a great ETF in terms of the dividends. My last dividend payment that I received in June was $112. So really good dividend paying ETF. And if you're in that ETF, it's a good fund, right? But for me personally, I want to see more growth in my portfolio, which is why I sold that. And I invested that money back into the stock market. I took $7,000 and I invested it in the S&P 500 ETF. That's the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. The ticker symbol is VOO. A lot of you guys may be familiar with that fund. That's one of my largest positions in this particular brokerage account. Let's look at my buying history. Right? Well, let me go back real quick because I want to talk about SCHD just to give you a brief overview of what that ETF is. I didn't talk about that. So let's talk about that real quick. So SCHD tracks a market cap weighted index of 100 dividend paying U.S. equities. So there's 100 different companies within that particular fund. Some of the companies that you may be familiar with in that fund, within the top 10 of that asset, is Chevron, Verizon, and Home Depot, just to name a few, right? So those are some notable companies within that fund. And again, good paying ETF, relatively inexpensive to own. I think the expense ratio is 0.06%, so it's very low to own that fund. And again, my main reason for selling it is just because I wanted to invest in something that had a much higher growth potential. All right, so let's go to my buys in VOO just to show you guys real quick. All right, let's go down here. August 7th, as you can see right here, I bought 12 shares, or 12.03 and some change, at 581.79. That was the price of VOO at the time. That was on August 7th. So I waited not even 2 weeks before I invested that money back into the market. Remember, I sold on July 31st. SCHD, sold it for $11,000 and some change. I waited until August 7th before I invested that money and bought more assets, right? So that was $7,000 of that $11,000 and some change, right? If we scroll up, as you can see, I made another buy on August 19th for $4,384. So now we're at $11,384 of that money, right? On August 19th, I bought 7.45 shares at $587.96, right? So the price of VOO went up a little bit, and I spent a little over $4,000 and bought more. So that's $11,384 of that money. The other 200 and some odd dollars I invested in some other assets, right? But it all went back into the market. Now I want to show you guys something else real quick. SCHD at the time I sold was $26 and some change, right? That's what I said. $26 and some change. $26.78. And as of today, at the time of this video, the market is closed on the weekends, by the way. Saturday and Sunday, the stock market is closed. But as of today, that stock is now priced at $27.42. If we look at the 3-month time frame, the stock went up 15 cents in 3 months. Very, very, very slow growth. If we go to the S&P 500, 3-month time frame, the stock has increased in value 7.43%, or $42.56, right? Within a 3-month time frame. Now, I know I bought these assets or invested in August, right? But let's just say I invested that entire $11,000 and some change in the market in July, right? Let's just call it 3 months. Even now, what is October 6th or 7th, something around there, it wouldn't be exactly 3 months, but let's just say 3 months, right? Just to make the math easy. If I had invested that $11,000 some change in VOO, I would be up 7%, right? Still much higher than the 15 cent if I would have left it in SCHD, right? I still would have had a much better return on my money. But check this out. I want to look at another stock that I'm invested in, right? What if I have invested that $11,000 in Robinhood? Robinhood, ticker symbol Hood, is another individual stock that I'm invested in. Let's look at the 3-month time frame for Robinhood stock. Robinhood is currently up 58% over the last 3 months, or $55.16. So 58% return I would have made had I put that entire $11,000 and some change into Robinhood. 58% is a lot better than 7% invested in VU, right? And the stock price is actually a lot lower. So if I would have taken that $11,000 and invested it into Robinhood, that $11,000 investment today would be up $17,380, and now I'll put it on the screen. But let me show you something else. Let's go back to my portfolio. Another individual stock that I recently got in a few weeks ago is Applied Digital, ticker symbol APLD. This is basically a tech stock, right? Let's look at Applied Digital, 3-month time frame. The current price of Applied Digital as of today is $26.45. My average cost is $23.37. Again, I got in a couple weeks ago, so I am in profit right now. But had I invested in Applied Digital 3 months ago, as you can see, this stock is up 160% over the last 3 months. 160%. So had I taken that $11,000 and invested in Applied Digital, that $11,000 would now be worth or valued at $28,600 in 3 months. That, my friends, is the power of investing. 160% gain. Oh, man. Now, of course, these are things that you don't know, right? Hindsight is 2020. You don't know what some of these stocks are going to do in the market. But tech stocks, high risk, high reward, right? There are some tech ETFs that you can invest in that are made up of more companies within one, right? So it does minimize your risk somewhat than just dumping all your money into one individual stock. But I found myself over the last 2 months or so investing more into some individual stocks that I believe in long term, right? Not necessarily for short term growth, but long term. So, and I'll talk more about some of those stocks that I've invested in, and now I'm just dollar cost averaging in to those stocks every day, right? I just transferred $2,000 to my brokerage account. I plan on deploying that into one of these new individual stocks that I've invested in. It's either going to go into Applied Digital, ABCL, which is one that I talked about. I posted about this one. This is Absolera Biologics, or IonQ, ticker symbol IONQ. This is a computing company, again, in the AI space, tech space. And there's another one that I posted about, Rocket Lab Corporation. I don't know if you guys got into that play when I posted it 4 days ago now. Let me look at Rocket Lab real quick. That's another one that I believe in long term. Rocket Lab current price is at $55.70. When I made that post 3 days ago, been 5 days ago. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but when I made this post, Rocket Lab was $47.30. So had you bought that stock 5 days ago, you would be up right now. That's the power of the stock market. Do your own research before you invest in any asset. Again, the stock market just happens to be one of those investment vehicles that I love, and I'm going to continue to invest in the stock market and continue to grow my portfolio and continue to put my money to work. And hopefully this can help some of you guys out there that may not be necessarily familiar with the stock market, what to invest in, things of that nature. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, so I encourage you to do your own research. The things that I talk about on my channel is what I do with my own money and some of the things that I invest in. I'm not telling you to invest into these things, but educate yourself, right? There's always going to be risk when you're talking about investing. So you have to know your risk tolerance, know what you can and can't invest in terms of the amount of money that you can put into these brokerage accounts. Again, I invest every day, Monday through Friday. I have a certain amount of money coming out of my checking account into my brokerage accounts every Monday, right? And so to me, it just makes it a lot easier to just automate this process rather than just, waiting, spending this amount of money here, $5 here, $20 here, $100 here, $1,000 here, whatever the case may be. Sometimes I do lump sum amounts of money, like I'm gonna do tomorrow when the market opens. Like I told you guys, I got $2,000 that I just transferred over. Now that's a lump sum amount of money that has nothing to do with the money that's already automated to come out of my account. But I want to just drop this lump sum of money on some things that I feel good about. And again, I'll talk to you guys about some of these other individual stocks that I invested in later on in another video. But do your own research, guys. Do your own research. All right, guys. So real quick, I just want to add something to this video. And this is something that I just thought about as I was doing my grocery shopping. As you can see, it is raining outside. So we made it back to the car before it actually started coming down. But check this out. I want to add something that's very important. I talked about the sale of my SCHD asset. That $11,000 and something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do have to pay taxes on the profits, right? Since I own that fund 2 years, I have to pay what's called long-term capital gains tax. Now, for me, I fall within that 15% tax rate. Depending on how long you own a fund, if it's under 12 months, you have to pay short-term capital gains tax. If you sell that fund under 12 months, right? If you hold it longer than 12 months and you sell, you have to pay long-term capital gains on the profits, all right? So again, do your own research on your tax implications and what you will be responsible for by selling a stock, right? On the other side of the spectrum, let's say you sell a stock at a loss, right? You realize a loss. Losses can offset gains. In fact, depending on how much you lost, it can actually wipe the gains away completely. So, again, do your own research, guys, when it comes to the stock market, taxes, things of that nature. Very important. All right, that's all I got. Holler at you guys later.